So today I am driving the BMW M2 Competition, and you guessed it, this is Thomas's car. Now, quick history of the BMW M2. This car was launched in 2015 to replace the 1 Series M Coupe, and it was positioned something like a baby M car to fill in the entry-level slot that the M3 vacated as it grew in size. Now, the 1 Series M concept was built on the 1 Series Coupe, and the difference between the 1 Series M Coupe versus other M cars of that time is that it did not feature a purpose-built M engine. Instead, it had the N54 3-liter twin-turbo engine that you get in the 335i. So the M2 pretty much followed the same philosophy. BMW launched it in 2015 carrying the N55 twin-scroll turbo engine that you find in the F30 335i or the F10 535i or the 740i of that generation. The difference, however, is that in the M2 there's some upgraded internals, some rework engine mapping and all that. So instead of 306 horsepower, you get 365 horsepower. It's not a direct swap from a 335i to make the M2. There is some improvements, but the base engine is the BMW N55. Then in 2018, BMW replaced the M2 with the M2 Competition. Now, this is not a body kit special. The competition badge, it's not just stick there to show this car has new bumpers, some new accessories and all that, because BMW made some significant changes to the car mechanically. And the engine, it's no longer using the N55, but rather the S55 engine from the M3 and the M4. So people who were saying that, oh, the M2 is not a proper M car because it did not have an S-code engine, well, the M2 Competition shuts that down quite emphatically. And you're getting a 40 horsepower, 85 Newton meter output upgrade over the regular M2. And there are a lot of things inside the S55 engine that is different from the N55 that it's going to drag my video too long if I were to go through and explain one of them. But I would say the important changes to note is that when you open the engine bay of the M2 Competition, you would see that carbon fiber plastic strut that was not previously present in the regular M2 but taken from the M3 and the M4. Now, the reason why BMW upgraded the M2 from the N55 to the S55 here in the M2 Competition may surprise you a bit. Now, of course, it made for good marketing talk that, oh, the M2 Competition now has a proper M engine. BMW finally gave the M2 the engine it deserves. But the reality actually was that during that time, BMW found that the N55 engine will no longer meet the WLTP emission standards, whereas the S55 did. That's why the N55 was pensioned off. And the fact that it gave the M2 a substantial upgrade both in the performance sense as well as a marketing sense was a very, very welcome bonus. Now, the differences between the regular M2 versus the M2 Competition are not readily apparent to the untrained eye. For example, BMW says that the front bumper vents are bigger on the M2 Competition than it is in the regular M2. But to my eyes, besides these vents here, I fail to see a significant difference. But what is genuinely different are these grills that are now joined in the middle that sort of provide a bit of a design bridge between the older F generation BMWs with the newer generation ones. The headlights, for example, these are the same as you find in the earlier M2. Now, one of the clearest visual cues, however, to pick up would actually be the side mirrors. The earlier M2 had just the same side mirror as a regular 2 Series, but the M2 Competition here has the more fierce looking double-edged side mirrors that you get with the M3 and the M4. The wheels are also different. The M2 had a simple 5 double spoke design, whereas here in the M2 Competition you have this shinier, more intricate looking multi-spoke alloys that really make the M2 Comp look not only more aggressive but also substantially more upmarket as well. These wheels look like the owner spent an extra 15-20 grand to upgrade from the standard wheels. And also you get bigger brakes here in the M2 Competition versus that of the regular M2. Sheet metal, of course, is the same body as the regular M2, which is not a bad thing. Now that I'm used to seeing the M2, the regular 2 Series without the flared arches right now suddenly look a bit undernourished. Now this is my favorite angle of the M2, and I particularly like how the rear wheel arches, they flare so aggressively that it gives the M2 a proper muscular stance. From here, look how the rear wheel arches, it just flares out, it pushes out against the body, so sort of like creating that surface tension here at the side, like how the muscles of a buff bodybuilder pushes out against his shirt. Now, BMW says that the rear diffuser is unique to the M2 Competition. It is redesigned from that of the regular M2. I honestly can't tell the difference, but you see this quad exhaust here shows that they are the legit stuff. And of course, the badge here says all the difference. M2 Competition. And of course, you also get this black ducktail spoiler to give it the added dose of subtle aggression. And just because it's a coupe doesn't mean it can't be practical. Boot size is decent. You got this net here to hold, to press things down if needed. There's also a netted compartment here, a hook here to hang your items, a 12-volt socket here, another hook, and the seats fold down 60/40 split fold, which you have a release here. Then you go inside. So we come inside. Now, as I've released the seats earlier, it comes down like that, flat. And what you get here is a slanting but flat floor that gives you a through loading space to the back. At the back here, I'm 170 centimeters tall. So headroom is just about enough lah. My hair is just about touching the roof. The lean angle is good. I'm not being pushed too upright. Thigh support is surprisingly not bad, and same goes to leg room. Actually, I've got good enough space here in front, about 8 inches or so. This is a strict 4-seater, so the middle here is just a storage tray. You've got rear aircon vents and a 12-volt socket. So overall, for a compact 2-door coupe, it's actually pretty spacious here at the back. Now, the rear headrests folds down like this when there's unoccupied, so you have to fold it up 90 degrees if you are seated at the back here to get proper rear support. Then when nobody's here, you just fold it down and then you drop it so that to give the driver better rear visibility. And you can see here the seat belts have this nice M tricolor stitch to it as well. Up there you've got hanger for the coats on the left side, also on the right side. But here at the side panel, it's just this Alcantara trim here with the leather armrest. That's it. There's no other amenities here at the back. So now we come to check out the front. The door card, relatively simple design. Once again, this is taken from the regular 2 Series. So you do get some atas barang here, like the Alcantara inserts here and also the carbon fiber trim piece here. I like the slight floating effect that the trim insert here gets. And also here at the door sill, you get the M2 Competition badge here to remind you that you have paid more than you would have in a regular M2. Then the cluster and the steering wheel, these are upgraded from the regular M2 as well. So in the regular M2, you get the old-fashioned analog meters, but in the M2 Competition, you get these. They are still analog meters, but they try to mimic the appearance of a digital cluster. So in actual fact, the screen area is actually only here, but they made it in such a way to blur the distinctions so that it appears in one unison appearance. And of course, you have the red dials that are trademark of BMW M cars. Non-M cars, you get white dials, but M cars get red dials. This cluster design, we last saw this in actually the lower spec G20 models that BMW Malaysia has since phased out. Another upgrade here to the M2 Competition, of course, is you get this steering wheel, this M steering wheel with the M button here, the two M memory buttons here that basically you can press them to recall your combination of settings that involve the stability control. You press this once to activate M dynamic mode, and you really have to hold it to go DSC off together, which we wouldn't want to do this in an open road. Then here you can see this range of buttons. This car does not have adaptive suspension, so this button adjusts the engine, so you can go efficient, sport, sport plus. There's another button here that adjusts the steering wheel, so this basically controls the weight, comfort, sport, sport plus. And this is parking sensors. This is the gear shift speed. So this is of course the M7 speed DCT. So there are three settings or so. There's basically, you can see from the side here, 1, 2, 3. So 3 of course being the hardest shifting setting. So with this MDCT gear selector, so right now it's in drive mode. Push side to neutral, go up to engage reverse, and bring it down to neutral. There is no button or space for you to select park when the engine is started. Basically how it works is, when you turn off the engine one time, okay, it comes out with this weird warning. Then you'll be wondering where is the park button, but what you actually have to do is you just press the off button one more time and the gear selector goes to P. So when you start the car, okay, the transmission defaults in P, and then what you do is you either push this side to go to drive or push up to go to reverse. All right, and of course upshift and downshift is selected by pulling and pushing, or you have the pedal shifters here. And here you can see there's the carbon fiber trim at the side here, as well as up here. There's a textured feeling to it. Okay, it's not a smooth surface, it's a textured surface, so that gives it a sportier, more upmarket appeal. So down here there's a flat tray. It's a very shallow tray, and then this is lidded. It's not spring loaded, so you have to just push it manually. There are two molded cup holders inside, and here as well there is a storage box. Pretty shallow, but just big enough for you to drop a phone inside. And also you've got, oh okay, this is for the 12-volt socket, and there's a USB port right there. So this is the iDrive selector. So you have 6 functions here on screen here, and you have my vehicle, vehicle settings, and all that. So I've spent the last couple of days using this as my daily car. Thank you, Thomas, for this opportunity. And I have to say, the M2 Competition is really a wonderfully talented all-rounder car. Now, there are some who say that the regular M2 with the older N55 engine is the friendlier car for day-to-day use, and I don't doubt that at all, because at the end of the day, remember this: the N55 was an engine tuned and built for road use. The S55 engine is a bit more high-strung. It's built for drama. So it is only natural that the N55 is the more friendly engine for day-to-day use. But that being said, the M2 Competition here, it remains a greatly usable car. And this is despite this car not having adaptive suspension. It's a full M suspension, passive setup. It's more comfortable than the G20 M Sport, which is kudos to the M2 Competition, but what the hell with the G20 330i? The setup in that car, when I drive this in comparison, now even more does not make sense. The engine behavior in the meantime, alright, right now I'm driving this car in efficient mode, and it behaves in a way that is docile enough that you don't feel tiresome using it to navigate the hazards of day-to-day driving. Let me elaborate further why. You see, when your car is tuned with a throttle response that is too explosive, too punchy, what happens is that slow and steady progress becomes difficult to modulate. When you just want to creep in that 6 inches in a traffic jam, you don't want the car to lurch forward, you want the car to just stroll forward, just roll forward. And it is only when the road in front clears and you bury the throttle, that is when you want the car to run riot. And that is exactly what the M2 Competition here does. So the duality in character of this car is very, very well balanced. It is, we know first and foremost, it is tuned with sporting ambitions as a priority, but it retains just about enough day-to-day usability that it is a good daily companion. But when you want it to go, you bury the throttle. Holy shit, this thing can go. Now, it's not the fastest, it's not the punchiest that I have ever driven, but the way it delivers the acceleration, you know, and the soundtrack that it accompanies the engine, it makes the experience enjoyable. It is such an eager puppy. Now I'm driving the car in sport mode, right? The engine in sport mode. It is so eager, so raring to go. But even in sport mode, the calibration of the throttle is still eminently sensible. Because yes, at the upper reaches of the throttle, you bury it, it flies. Okay, now I'm driving over some pretty bad patch of road. You see, the thing is this, you know, what I'm really impressed with this car is that it's fast, but the way it delivers its speed, it is so manageable, it is so friendly, right? It gives you so much confidence to see that gap and go for it and exploit it. Like what I said earlier when I reviewed the Audi S5 about how Audis pull you around bends with sheer grip. The BMW, in contrast, dances around with you. And the M2 Competition, this boy can dance, man. This guy can dance. There is that flow through the chassis that this car is always working together with you. It is always tangoing with you. It is anticipating what you want to do, and it is ready to play ball. And you see, right now, even I'm driving in sport mode in low speed traffic, right? The throttle calibration at small openings, right? It's still very sensibly done. It is still a very easy car to manage. And that is not an easy balance to strike. So I'm coming to a conclusion of this video with somewhat mixed feelings. You see, the thing is, the M2 Competition is by all means an extremely accomplished car. And if you have your eyes set on buying one of this, You absolutely should, because they will not make another car like this anymore. Yes, there is a new M2 in town, but they won't make another one like this. You see, the glorious thing about the M2 is that this is a car that right now, as I'm taking my attention off the road and talking to you, I can potter around at 65 kilometers per hour, you know, and no problem. This car now behaves no differently from a 220i or a 218i in that it is docile, it is easy to drive, and it's comfortable enough, it's pliant enough. It just moves and it does not give you any fuss. Then when the road opens up, you decide to open up the throttle a bit, it will play ball with you, it will dance with you, but despite the explosive performance at its disposal, it remains utterly manageable. It is by no means an intimidating car to drive. You see, when I contrast this against, say, a Volkswagen Group or Audi car, where those cars you get sheer performance, it's performance handed on a silver platter, you get handling that gives you absolute sense of security. The M2 here plays around with you a bit, it dances with you a bit, it wiggles its tail with you a bit, but behind the scenes, you know it's got your back, right? And you still get a richly interactive driving experience. You still get the sensations flowing through your veins, you know, as you push this car through its limits, and the communicativeness, that is the quality that you will not get in many more cars to come. So the M2, whether it's the M2 or the M2 Competition, especially the M2 Competition, this car is destined to be a future classic. And if you are eyeing one of these, you are lucky that Thomas somehow now has his eyes turned by the Alpine A110. So you have the opportunity to bring this car into your garage. See, the problem is that Thomas has been trying to sell this car for the last month or so. He has not been getting the kind of offers that he was expecting. And I believe the reason why is that, for start, the value, the real value of the M2 Competition or the M2 was not properly articulated. Yes, we know it's got a new engine. We know it's got a lot of stuff that were taken out from the M3 or the M4. But the way this car is presented, yeah, it kind of like negates all the engineering stuff that's done underneath. Make no mistake, this car is a totally different animal from the regular M2. The regular M2 is nice and fun and all that, but this car is another level up. And the thing is this, you can buy the regular M2 and you can have a ton of fun with it. But let me tell you this from the perspective of a car enthusiast. You can buy that M2, you can have that ton of fun with it. Then later on you would say, I want to change the M4 side mirror so that I look like the M2 Competition. Then you'll be buying rims to look like the M2 Competition. Then you'll be changing the front bumper to look like the M2 Competition. And eventually, right, you'll be spending the kind of money that you would have gotten an M2 Competition anyways. But you got an M2 that forever the next time you put on Muda, you'll be selling it as BMW M2, and in the description section say convert to M2 Competition. Why do that? Go for the OG, go for the full Monty, play for the win. I mean, take it from me, I am speaking from experience. Owning a 520i, now every day talking to my mechanic, asking him, hey, got engine one to convert to 530i? I tell you, as a car enthusiast, you buy a lower spec variant, down the road, confirm you will kukuchao ichi, you will want to upgrade your spec to the next highest thing. In that case, why not, instead of going for the M2 and supposedly saving that 30-40k today, just foot the difference, go for the M2 Competition. Now, whether or not you buy Thomas's car, that is secondary. But the point that I want to say is the M2 Competition, it is that much different from a regular M2, and there is a reason why it costs substantially more. So anyways, a quick plug for Thomas. If you are looking for an M2 Competition, you can search Thomas up on Facebook, you can PM the Horizon social media channels, or you can ring up the EvoClub Car Wash team. Any of us, we can arrange for you guys to have a look at this car. This is definitely a car you don't want to miss out if you are looking for one of these. And Thomas's car, especially, all of us can vouch for its condition, and you'll be getting a car that is fully PPF, everything serviced. Really, it is just a buy and drive condition car. Okay, so that's it from me today. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Give it a like, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and do subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so. All right, so until the next time, take care, stay safe. I'll see you soon.